Welcome once again to AUTO MUNDIAL, the weekly home of all the latest motoring news and reviews. This week, we spend some time aboard Subaru's latest answer to the Land Rover Discovery.
We've also got the successor to one of our favourite Volkswagen products of the last decade, but how will the up formula translate to EV tech?
Plus, Morgan launches its all-new and all-enthralling Halo car.
That is all coming up. First though, the news.
With significant pressure being put on the motoring industry following the announcement of a 25% tariff on all new cars exported to the United States of America, the UK government has decided to provide a bit of relief to UK-based manufacturers and assembly plants. Until recently, manufacturers selling non-electric or plug-in hybrid vehicles from 2030 onwards would incur fines for each example sold in the UK. But the government is now saying that it will allow the sale of so-called hybrids with significant electric range, essentially full hybrids, for a further 5 years. Additionally, more specialist manufacturers, something the UK has in abundance, producing fewer than 2,500 cars a year, will be allowed to continue selling pure internal combustion models until at least 2035, provided they meet a certain CO2 emissions target. Those car makers fitting this description include supercar brands like McLaren and Morgan, as well as luxurious icon Rolls-Royce. Whilst these tweaks to the petrol and diesel ban will lift a little weight from manufacturers' shoulders, it once again shows a disregard for the working class, with those car makers exempt from the ban typically targeting the 1%. Furthermore, this latest change adds to the uncertainty surrounding the future of the motoring industry, with targets ever on the move.
Volkswagen, the definitive people's car. Be it Beetle, Golf or Polo, these models have provided the common Joe with mobility for decades. But what does the people's car actually mean? Well, whilst not quite true anymore, with other manufacturers undercutting its prices, the German manufacturer aimed at producing cars for everyone. And with its latest concept, it seems it's returning to its roots. This is the Volkswagen ID Everyone, and just as the name says on the tin, it supposedly caters to all. Quite the challenge, huh? Fitting compact hatchback dimensions with a clear aim towards the popular Renault 5, the latest Volkswagen concept follows a long line of more approachable all-electric concepts from the German manufacturer, though this one is the smallest yet. It's only just longer than the old Up. Whilst we could imagine the exterior design easily transitioning to production-ready specification, the interior better fits the concept title. A floating dashboard with square steering wheel, massive screen and a set of ridiculously thin seats all seem a bit far-fetched for the real world, though it does show efficient usage of space, meaning that despite a tight floor pan, passengers should enjoy decent space. The developed platform, the ID Everyone gets a single 95 brake horsepower motor, powering the front wheels with a battery capable of around 150 miles on a charge, which might not sound like a lot, but these city cars are designed to plug into mains power every night after a city commute. And that city-bound ethos is reflected in the Everyone's performance. It will only just be capable of scraping 80 miles per hour, the national motorway speed limit in many European countries. Expected to reach production in 2027, the ID Everyone will supposedly hit the market from below £20,000, which should sit it alongside the electric Citroën C3 and Dacia Spring. As with all affordable electric vehicles, this latest concept is a promising sign for the generalization of electric tech. but with its launch still some 2 years away and battery tech ever improving, we wonder how up-to-date it will be when we do finally get our hands on this little city car.
From major industry announcements to automotive releases from the Middle Kingdom, China's car manufacturers were out in full force at last year's Paris Motor Show. And amongst the most mainstream Chinese unveilings was this, the BYD SEALION 7. Well, now the all-electric family SUV is available to order here in the UK. But should you?
To answer that, let's first take a look at one of its main rivals as it hits our shores, the Skoda Enyaq. First launched in 2020, the first electric Skoda has had plenty of time to bed into the UK market and has, as a result, become quite the popular family car. But earlier this year, it received a major visual facelift, better aligning it with the L-Rock sharp front fascia. Underneath, it's still the same popular model, however, retaining its choice of 59 or 77 kilowatt-hour battery packs, good for between 270 and 360 miles on a charge. At the lower end of that spectrum is the entry-level Enyaq 60, sporting the smaller battery and pairing it with a 200 brake horsepower motor on the rear axle. Above that sit a pair of equally powerful 285 brake horsepower models in either rear or all-wheel drive form, dubbed the 85 and 85X respectively. For its greater range, we would suggest the rear-driven model, as the X does lose around 30 miles of potential on average. Inside, as is usually the case with Skoda models, everything is very plush and well thought out. The cabin getting a spacious layout with nice design pieces. Whilst we would like to see a smaller screen better fit into the dashboard, all of its 13 inches now come as standard following the recent facelift, as do 3-zone aircon, adaptive cruise control and keyless entry. A long wheelbase model, the rear seats get good legroom, though the coupe variant will restrict headroom for taller individuals, and the boot is best described as a cabin with its 585 litres. All that is available from £39,000, though the more capable 85 powertrain commands a £5,000 bonus.
So how does the new kid on the block fare? Well, to start things off on the wrong foot, China's most mainstream car manufacturer here in the UK prices its mid-size family SUV from £47,000, slightly more than the Skoda. For that, you get a cabin presenting as a luxury product with its quilted leather and flashy decoration. Though when we jumped aboard at the model's European launch, we found materials to feel on the cheaper end of the scale, leaving us craving a bit more comfort. Nevertheless, you get a good amount of standard tech here too, from heated and cooled front seats plus heated rears to a whopping 15.6-inch touchscreen. Though dual-zone climate control cannot rival the Skoda's 3 zones. Space for both rows of seating is good, with plenty of room for 4, 5 at a squeeze, and while the boot itself is quite a bit smaller than the Skoda, a bin under the bonnet makes up the difference. While 3 power solutions exist, we see little need to go for anything other than the entry-level comfort model with its rear-driven 310 brake horsepower, powered by an 82.5 kilowatt-hour battery. Good for 300 miles on a charge, it isn't enough to rival the Skoda, but should be enough for day-to-day life. For more power, all-wheel drive models are available with 530 brake, though that does take a toll on your range expectations. A particularly powerful heat pump preparing batteries operating temperature on BYD's E-platform will be interesting for those worried about range anxiety in the colder months. But for the majority of the year, the Skoda is simply both the more affordable, more efficient and more comfortable, in our opinion. So, unfortunately, BYD, we will not be buying your dream quite yet.
after the break. A brand new Morgan supercar that looks the same as every other Morgan supercar before it. And that's why we love it.
Welcome back. How is Morgan still evolving and innovating the same design over 75 years later? Find out later on in the show.
Let's be honest, when it comes to taking on the countryside and its harsh tracks, muddy slopes and deeper puddles than expected, the common crossover SUV simply will not do. Fragile, wheezy and lacking the ride height necessary to navigate larger obstacles, the likes of the class best-selling Kia Sportage is no more usable than a Citroën Ami. So if you have chosen to settle down out of city limits and away from the joys of the ULEZ zone, you may think that options for a comfortable and refined family car are a little thin. Well, an experienced player in the muddy motor market, Subaru would have something to say about that.
This is the recently renewed Subaru Forester, and while it's been on sale in its current far more plush form stateside for a good year now, we're only just getting our hands on its 6th generation here in the UK. Visually over its predecessor, we must admit to being fans of this newer model with its sharper front end while retaining a rugged overall look thanks to solid plastic cladding, a tall, almost estate-looking roof and muscular wheel arches. Though we're not convinced this long rear overhang inspires great confidence in more extreme off-road scenarios. That being said, it does make for a very long boot, leaving plenty of space for flat-pack furniture or furry friends. While entry-level limited trim models get a cabin full of easy clean upholstery, even the lowest editions get this same 11.6-inch touchscreen featuring all the car's interior controls. An easy-to-use display with your most used functions omnipresent, we'd like to see climate and sound features get dedicated buttons. Space throughout the cabin is excellent for all involved, especially when considering the tall roof, meaning even the longer of humans will sit comfortably aboard. What you're looking at here, complete with leather and suede upholstery, plus additional heated seats in the rear and sunroof, is the top touring trim level. Bringing nice additions like heated rear seats, fancy suede inserts, a large sunroof and mean 19-inch wheels, this is the Forester in a more elevated guise. Adding a further £4,000 to the base model's £39,000 starting price, the extra luxuries are not for everyone and certainly don't cater to the Forester's traditional clientele of adventurous country folk. But should you want a more lavish countryside cruiser in which you won't fear a bit of ditch diving when coming across the odd tractor, it may well be worth the money. Instead of an agricultural runabout, we see this higher edition as a comfortable family commuter, capable of getting you out of sticky situations when needed. And that comfort very much carries over to the Forester's driving style. Under the bonnet is the same hybridised 2-litre 4-cylinder boxer engine you find across the Subaru range. 136 brake horsepower may sound meagre on paper, but with good torque, you rarely feel the engine wheezing. Better yet, we found the CVT transmission to smoothen out the power band, meaning that provided your inputs remain gentle, you'll rarely experience lurching like other gearboxes of the same style. It's not just the drivetrain that makes for an easy time on board, as tall ground clearance also allows for a soft suspension setup that eats bumps and potholes for breakfast. Don't be fooled by the Forester's elegant clothing, however, as under the surface it still has an air of utilitarian unsophistication. A large model with chunky tyres and a gearbox that lets ponies run free in exchange for a smooth drive, we struggle to approach the 30 mpg mark, which, in a hybrid, does feel a bit disappointing. As a result, you will find yourself at the pumps more frequently than the more common crossover. But once again, it will allow you to do far more than the majority of its competitors, so there's a level of give and take to keep in mind, depending on your needs. As we say, in this touring specification, our particular Forester is available from £43,000, which does feel steep for a model sporting the Subaru badge and places it dangerously close to traditionally more upmarket manufacturers like JLR.
This is the Discovery Sport, and much like the top-of-the-range Forester, it pairs a plush cabin with the idea of a more capable chassis and hitting the market with a £44,500 price tag. If you're considering the Subaru, you might as well ponder this too. A list of mild hybrid powertrains connected to the model's all-wheel drive system is made up of 2-litre Ingenium engines in either petrol or diesel form. A format known for snapping timing chains and oil dilution, you certainly won't benefit from Subaru's now legendary reliability record unless you opt for the more expensive plug-in hybrid Disco Sport. 28 miles of electric-only range, 270 brake horsepower and 7 seconds to 60 all sounds great until you check the £50,000 price tag and lack of towing capacity versus the Subaru's 1,870 kilograms. That fancy but fragile character continues to the cabin, as where the Forester pairs nice materials with a sturdy layout, the Discovery is all about showing off the finer things in life. High-quality leathers, wood panel trim and chrome details decorate a dainty interior space. Much like its Japanese rival, the majority of controls have moved to within the 11-inch screen. Space in the back appears to be just as generous as in the Forester, though the boot is far larger on the Land Rover in its 5-seat form. Overall, if you had your heart set on the Land Rover and its social status from the get-go, you might as well stick to what you know. But if you're a family of 5 living in the sticks looking for something capable and comfortable without attracting attention, perhaps this Forester is worth considering.
Frog eye headlights, horseshoe grille, long curvaceous wings. No, this isn't a vintage Morgan sports car from the dawn of motoring, nor is it a modern +6 built as a BMW Z4 in fancy attire. Bringing the Supersport name back to the British car scene, this is the new pinnacle of Morgan motoring. Taking everything we all love from the timeless manufacturer, this new Morgan Supersport becomes the latest halo car for the brand, sitting above existing models with, as we can all agree, a far sportier look. Where typical Morgans get plenty of charming chrome, this new model sports aggressive dark accents to the front bumper and bonnet. Whilst we like the overall traditionalist front end, the rear does look like the boot lid is trying to swallow an old 911. It isn't all about looks for the newest range topper, however, as the Supersport also introduces a new platform for the British car maker that will form the basis of every Morgan going forward. Dropping a heavily wood-based chassis in favour of nice lightweight aluminium, the team behind this new model is being slightly cagey about whether or not the platform does or not feature wood to its structure. But either way, the boot does get a bit of exposed dash as a tribute to the olden days that have seemingly only just ended. Sitting under the bonnet is the same twin-turbocharged BMW-developed B58-6 that powers the popular Toyota Supra. Whilst the Japanese sports car gets up to 380 brake horsepower, the Supersport must make do with only 335. But coupled with a lightweight Morgan design, and we would imagine this newest drop top to be super sporty. As you can tell, this Morgan is not just a drop top, however, as each example will ship with a lightweight carbon composite hardtop roof, just in case you live in rainy old Britain. And in fact, we prefer the model's look with its fixed head coupe attached. The price for all this forward-thinking design, you might ask? Well, sadly, this is a six-figure Morgan. The Supersport setting you back a crushing £102,000.
Next time on Auto Mundial, we once again revisit the Renault 5, but as we've never seen it before.